Hey, BillO'Reilly.com premium members, welcome to the No Spin News for Monday, March 25th, 2019. Take your country back. So, obviously a big news night. We are very pleased that you are watching this broadcast. We're going to go a little longer tonight. We have Brett Tallman and Monica Crowley, two guests, and a lot of analysis, obviously, on the Mueller report. A few other good stories, though. Avenatti, Michael Avenatti, major trouble, looking at 45 years in prison. And that is something. So let's begin with the Mueller report. And I want to make a few general comments before I get into the actual report itself. From the very beginning, and I'm very proud of this, because I have a small but elite staff, we have made zero mistakes covering the investigation of Russian collusion by Robert Mueller. No mistakes. For 22 months, not one, here at BillO'Reilly.com, which is why you spend your money, I assume, watching us. Now, what I did not do was speculate, because that is a waste of your time and my time. I also did not misstate the facts. I did not have bombshells. I did not win a Pulitzer Prize, as the New York Times and Washington Post both did, for covering Russian collusion stories that turned out to be false. False. So are the Times and the Post going to give their Pulitzers back? Is there going to be a new Pulitzer Prize committee that awards accolades when stories are accurate? Any of that going to happen? The answer is no, it is not. Because we are living in a time of vast corruption, both in the political system and in the media system. Now, I'm going to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt tonight. Okay, Mueller report. Number one headline. Robert Mueller says after 22 months and $30 million in funding, there was no collusion between the campaign of Donald Trump and Russia. So Robert Mueller cannot find any collusion. Nothing. Secondly, Robert Mueller says there is insufficient evidence for President Trump to be charged with obstructing justice. Now, what does that mean, insufficient evidence? Does that mean there's a little bit of evidence? No. It means that there is nothing that Robert Mueller has proven that rises to him giving that piece of information to the Attorney General and recommending a prosecution. Now, maybe somebody's opinion is that James Comey, the FBI chief, got fired for that reason, but there's no proof. So therefore, the obstruction of justice falls into the same category as the collusion. It does not exist because there is not evidence saying it does. Maybe Trump got away with everything. Possible. You know. All right, third thing. Russia itself, under the direction of our pal Vladimir Putin, did try to influence the 2016 presidential election. There are two ways, all right? They conducted disinformation on social media designed to sow social discord. So they put out phony stuff on social media because that's so easy to do. The left-wing press puts out phony stuff on social media. Secondly, Russian government actors, I hate that word, but, you know, people in the employ of the Russian government, tried to conduct computer hacking, all right? And they were successful in getting into the Clinton campaign, obtaining emails, and then giving them to WikiLeaks and others. The Russian government employees paid by Putin hacked, got stuff, gave it to WikiLeaks and other organizations. That's what they found out. Everybody clear of what they found out? Okay. Now, There are two things that are very, very important that Robert Mueller did not deal with. Number one, was there FBI misconduct in the investigation of Russian collusion? Now, a U.S. attorney from Utah named John Huber is investigating that. He was assigned to do it. We haven't heard a word, but someone told me he's very close to submitting his findings to Attorney General Barr. How do I know? All right. Secondly, Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General of the Justice Department, has to issue his report on whether the FBI was corrupt in the investigation and used phony information to get FISA warrants to spy on American citizens working with Donald Trump. You got two things coming up: Huber, Horowitz. Now, again, I've been told, high level, all of that, but I'm not reporting it. I'm just talking to you as a friend. That the FISA stuff is solid. That James Comey signed off, he was the FBI chief at the time, fired by Trump, on phony warrant and put information in front of the judge that was not complete and was misleading. If that is the finding, Comey will be charged with a felony. Comey is also going to be charged with disseminating information from the FBI classified to the New York Times. Andrew McCabe, second in command, same beef. So all that's coming. Let's turn to the media situation now. Now, you got two prongs here in the media. You got the political prong, where the Democratic Party and the progressive left uses and works with the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, NBC News. Those are the four real big offenders, all right? New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, and NBC News. They're the big offenders. So the Democratic Party, supposedly, on an even keel with the Republican Party, has an alliance with those four and others, but they're big, all right? And that they use each other. So first, listen to these political SOTs, sound on tape. Go.
I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
Trump has the Kremlin clan surrounding him. There's more to be learned about it. I believe there's been collusion.
It's starting to smell more and more like collusion.
We saw cold, hard evidence of the Trump campaign, indeed the Trump family, eagerly intending to collude possibly with Russia.
Cold, hard evidence? What might that be, Ms. Speaker? All right, so you saw then what the party that wants to destroy Donald Trump was putting out. And that was taken at face value, not challenged, and disseminated by the organizations I mentioned and others. Now let's get to the actual pundits themselves. Roll that.
I think we've done, the media, the press has done one of the great reporting jobs in the history, especially of covering a presidency by the most news organizations. And look, let's look at where the disinformation and mistakes and lying have come from. Hasn't come from the press. It's come from the President of the United States.
This isn't something's over and let's reflect on what just happened. We still don't know what Mueller found. And now starts a whole new chapter of the Trump era in American life, a whole new era of this scandal, a whole new era of, in fact, the Mueller era.
Russians did interfere in our election. They spread disinformation on social media, and they waged a hacking campaign that included stealing emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign and from Democratic Party organizations.
Now, that's true. What he just said is true, Lemon, okay? But Lemon attributes all of that to the Trump campaign. Now, Carl Bernstein, it's over for Watergate. You know, he did good reporting back then. Now he's saying this reportage about the Mueller investigation was one of the greatest things the press ever did. That's, that is absurd. No other, it's just absurd. And then you saw the smugness of the MSNBC duo every day, every way. There they are. They couldn't care less what's true. And that's the real tragedy of this. These hate Trump people, and there are some on the right as well, that could not care less about what is true. And it's their job to bring the truth to you, the American people. Let's bring in a truth teller, Monica Crowley, who recently traveled the world. We'll get a couple of questions on that at the end, but she's back in the USA. Now, I know on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the absolute worst, press coverage of the Mueller affair, what would it be?
I would put it beyond 10. You and I have talked about this over the years. The media has always been biased to the left, but what's different in the Trump era, Bill, is the level of intensity and activism to actually go out and destroy the duly elected president of the United States. So if you're asking me for the scale, I would probably put it on a 12 or a 15, because what we've seen over the last 2 years has been catastrophic for them.
Will anyone be held accountable? Will the Pulitzer Prize committee call up the Washington Post and the New York Times saying, you got to give us the awards back because what you were reporting on was totally bogus. It never happened. It would be like you and I, Monica, making up a story about Peter Pan's return, that we saw him. That Monica Crowley and Bill O'Reilly, we saw Peter Pan. We saw him. And we write it up in a really, and Peter's going to cure cancer. And we submit it and we get a Pulitzer Prize. Do you expect anyone to be held accountable for false reporting, misinformation, and hating Trump when it's not their job to hate Trump?
No, I do not think there is going to be any accountability, just as we saw no accountability with the reputational assassination of Brett Kavanaugh, just as we saw with the Covington kids. This media now, they are straight up propagandists, and they look at it as their mission to help the left, to help the Democratic Party destroy Donald Trump.
Okay, so you don't believe anybody's going to be held accountable because there's no agency that can do it. The only way this can be policed is by their own corporation. So AT&T would bring in all the CNN liars and say, you're fired. And then Comcast would bring in all the NBC liars and say, we really can't use you anymore because your credibility is dashed. You don't expect any corporation to do anything like that, right?
I do not. And in fact, over the last 2+ years that this story has been, quote unquote, covered by the mainstream press, to my knowledge, we've only seen 2 examples of journalists actually paying the price for putting out fake news. One was CNN, which reported on Anthony Scaramucci, then the communications director. They put out a fake story saying that he had met with a Russian banker before Trump's inauguration. Scaramucci said it was totally false. He threatened a $100 million lawsuit against CNN, and 3 CNN investigative journalists resigned as a consequence. The other example is ABC's Brian Ross. He put out a report on ABC News saying that Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor, that he was prepared to testify that then candidate Donald Trump had ordered him to reach out to the Russians. You'll recall that the stock market tanked as a result of that. Brian Ross was then suspended, and now he no longer works at ABC. So those are 2 examples, but beyond that, forget accountability, Bill.
Okay, so you have then a situation where Americans have to decide, do I still subscribe to the New York Times and Washington Post? Do I still turn on CNN and MSNBC? But millions of them will. They'll still do that. Now, they are losing audience, but there are still people gonna do it. I mean, it's just astounding to me.
Well, that's because there are so few alternatives for people who want to have their narrative confirmed back to them. You're the exception to the rule. You put out the facts, you do straight up analysis, but shows like this one are few and far between. And sadly, we're in a place in this country where people seek out news operations and outlets where they can have their views reflected back to them.
I know
and
that.
as long as there's no price being paid for the lies
but there's
being
a
perpetrated.
difference. There's a difference between listening to, say, Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity on the radio when you know they're going to take a conservative view, and you choose to listen because you may be conservative and you want to have your argument bolstered. But there's a difference between being misled. I mean, you know, those guys are commentators. Those guys come at it from a conservative point of view. Nothing wrong with that. There aren't any liberal talk radio successful shows, so I can't point to the other side. But now we're talking about information that was put out as fact that's not. That's fraud. That's fraud. Yet some people will say, you know, give me more fraud. You know, I want to buy, here's $3 for the New York Times. I want to buy some fraud today. I mean, I'm going, this is a true story. One of my researchers who's very, very good, I asked for a summary last night after Mueller issued his report. They sent me the New York Times summary of what Mueller did. I didn't even read it. I tossed it like this. And then I said very gently, I said, send me summaries, but don't send me that from them. That's not true. I mean, it would be like getting some from the Havana paper. You know, am I going to really read that? And no, and that's absolutely true. When I saw a New York Times, I just went like this, boom, because I know I'm not going to get the truth. So this is what I don't understand. People want to pay for fraud. Why don't they just open up, you know, fraud is us, $20 a month, and then you get all the fraud you want.
Maybe we should start that operation.
Not me. I'm pristine. Not me.
You know what? I just want to make a really big point, Bill, about why we have seen all of this, why we've seen the corruption of the media, why we have seen the deep state corruption, conspiracy targeting Donald Trump, and it's because Donald Trump is an existential threat to all of them. Therefore, they, including in the media, they all justify their actions, including the fake news and the lies and the corruption, on the basis that this loudmouth interloper, who is not one of them, must be crushed before he has a chance to crush them.
But there's more to it than that. They believe, Monica, that he is the threat to the nation. He is the national emergency.
Correct.
It goes way beyond protecting turf. They actually believe their ends justify the means. All right, one question. So you're in Azerbaijan? Is that where you were?
Yeah.
Where were you? What were you doing there?
Baku, Azerbaijan. So I went with my friend and radio colleague, John Batchelor. We broadcasted back to the U.S. for a full week, all across Azerbaijan, including one day we went north to the Russian border and saw that. But what we wanted to do is take this fact-finding mission to see how Azerbaijan, which is a former Soviet republic, over the last 20 or so years have escaped the jackboot of oppression from Moscow and socialist economics to create a capitalist boom. And it's driven by and large, Bill, by oil and natural gas. So what you see in Azerbaijan, there are no Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes running around screeching about climate change.
They want capitalism because
they embrace the fossil fuels, and they are the central
How
point
was the food?
for all of the fuel running into to Europe. Food was very good.
That was all right, yeah? I've never been there. I've been to 82 countries. I've never been there. I don't know if I'll get there or not. All right, Monica, we'll see you soon. Thank you very much for helping us. I really appreciate it.
Always a
All right,
pleasure.
Michael Avenatti, federal prosecutors in L.A. and New York. He's got two beefs, and he's in serious trouble. So in New York, they allege, the feds, that Michael Avenatti conspired to commit extortion on the Nike company. And how it goes down is that on one of their earnings days, Nike, Avenatti apparently threatened to hold a press conference saying Nike executives were involved in misconduct. That's the old ruse, all right? That's what happened to me. So he called, apparently, said, look, unless you give me a lot of money, millions, I'm going to have a press conference and charge your executives with misconduct. That's what the feds allege. Now, we do not convict people on television, but he's facing that in New York. In L.A., he is accused of embezzling a client's money to pay his own expenses and debts. So it's more straightforward. Now, in New York, could get 47 years in prison. So his most famous client, Stormy Daniels, puts out a statement and says, I'm not surprised. He treated me terribly. Now, what does that say about you, Miss Daniels? So Michael Avenatti, if the feds are going to make that kind of case, I wouldn't want to be him. Okay, there was a report last week, an executive order from President Trump that told colleges, if you do not allow freedom of speech on campus, you will not get federal money. Not covered by ABC, CBS, and NBC at all on the evening broadcast. Nothing. Congressman Omar, the one who's anti-Israel, she has a fundraiser for CARE. That is the Council of American Islamic Relations. There is a big demonstration. Apparently, a number of Americans believe that Congresswoman Omar is anti-Semitic, and so is CARE. My sources tell me that CARE was one of the driving forces behind getting Judge Jeanine Pirro suspended. I don't know if that's true. That is what I have been told. Nearly 20,000 people have signed a petition demanding that Gillett, the Gillett razor company, take its name off the New England Patriots stadium because of the arrest of Robert Kraft. Now, why would they bother doing that? Okay? The Kraft beef is a low-level beef. The Florida prosecutors say we won't even bring it in if you just say you did something wrong, but you won't have a criminal record. It's not important enough for us to spend the time and money prosecuting it. So why would 20,000 people sign a petition to get Gillett, threatening Gillett, if they don't remove the name of the stadium? It's Gillette Stadium. That's the New England Patriots home field. And the reason is that Robert Kraft is a friend of Donald Trump. All right? So the boycotters, all right, strike again. Now, they boycotted Fox News. Fox News has lost a lot of sponsors, as you know. Right? They did that to me when I was there. So the boycotters are everywhere. Everywhere. Threat, threat. What's the difference between that and Michael Avenatti? Interesting philosophical question. Actress Alyssa Milano says that Hollywood should boycott Georgia. There's another boycotter. Here she is. Why? Because Georgia has passed a law that says abortion is not allowed once a fetus shows a heartbeat. It's called a heartbeat bill. All right? So Melissa Milano, a far-left progressive loon, says, you know what? Let's boycott Georgia because we don't like it. We don't care what the people of Georgia want. We're going to boycott. Boycott, boycott, boycott. All right, so we have an announcement on the radio deal that we're going to give you in a moment. We have Killing the SS. Buy it from us. You get Killing Patent $2. We have the best hats. All right, Take Your Country Back hat. We had a lot of stuff in the... and then you can pre-order the United States of Trump. We have a lot of pre-orders already. I better be good. I haven't finished it yet. It'll be out September 17th. I'll finish it by May. And there's a lot of pressure on me to make it good. Guys are ordering it already. Word of the day when writing to BillO'Reilly.com. Do not be a blatherskite. One word. BLATHERSKITE, blatherskite. And here's my final thought today. I'm going back on the radio. Key Networks is syndicating a 15-minute daily radio program called The O'Reilly Update. How about that, huh? The O'Reilly update is going to be like Paul Harvey. Good day. So every day, I'm going to give you the news, and then I'm going to analyze it on the radio, all across the USA and Canada. Now, if it doesn't come to your city or you're working, all right, we'll post it on BillO'Reilly.com. There you can see it. It's going to be 9.5 minutes because we have spots and all that, but it's going to be good. Right between the eyes stuff. Bang! So I'm happy to be back on national radio. We did 7 years of the Radio Factor, and I'm happy that the Key Network people have confidence in me to pull this off. I think I'll be able to do it, and we'll have really a lot of fun and a lot of good information for you. So that is it for us today. A little bit longer, but I hope you liked the program. Tomorrow, we'll read a lot of your mail about it, and we'll have another rollicking display because we will watch all of the far-left cable news people try to make excuses for their abysmal behavior and report back to you tomorrow. See you then.